It's that time of year again. School is back in session. And 13 News Now is your back-to-school station. That means we've got you covered. Everything you need to know heading into the new year.
From beating inflation and saving money on school supplies to breaking down all the new safety measures in place. The next hour is all about getting your child ready for the classroom. This is the 13 News Now Back to School Special.
All right, happy last day of summer vacation, the start of the new school year for thousands of students just hours away. I'm Philip Townsend.
And I'm Dana Smith. 13 News Now is your back to school station, and we're here to help Hampton Roads families start the new year off on the right foot. We'll discuss security changes that schools are implementing to keep your children safe.
Yeah, inflation impacts and just how much more you're spending to prepare your child for the new year.
And another year of pandemic protocol. Why COVID-19 isn't expected to play much of a role in the classroom this year.
And we're going to begin with an issue that played a big role in the 2022 Virginia gubernatorial election. The State Board of Education considering changes that would impact how students are taught history.
That's right. Last year, we told you about critical race theory. It's a concept that evaluates systems of racism in America, looks at how they've evolved and perpetuated, and challenges people to make change. The topic is not taught in K through 12 public schools. It's more suited for graduate school level discussions. In last fall's election, Governor Glenn Youngkin promised to throw out divisive concepts from public education. Alex Littlehels breaks down the conversations happening on Virginia's Board of Education.
You're doomed to repeat history if you don't know it, but also you're doomed to repeat it if you don't understand it.
Virginia's Board of Education puts a pause on updating how educators should teach history in the Commonwealth.
And it really comes down to two things. Number one is time.
Virginia State Superintendent Jillian Balow says the state board needs more time to create the blueprint for the 2022 History and Social Studies Standards of Learning. Topics aren't what could change, but more how they're taught. For example, school leaders say new standards are designed to promote critical questions and not just memorize facts. Dr. Danelle Wallace, Dean of Norfolk State University's School of Education, says this delay is a good move. She says there are some inconsistencies throughout the standards.
Make up your mind. Do you want people to be called white or European? Are we black? Are we African American? And so they still seem to be working that out.
But the bigger question is what's next. Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin has publicly spoken out against teaching, quote, divisive concepts, and even established a tip line for people to report them. Now there are lingering questions from those like Dr. Wallace over whether those beliefs could influence this process. She says teaching history, even if it's negative, doesn't mean it shouldn't be taught.
So I think we need to come to an understanding that history has some very dark and ugly parts. How do we teach that? Do I need to teach a kindergartner that? No, I don't need to teach a kindergartner that, but I do need to teach a high school student that it is not a fairy tale.
That was Alex Littlehels reporting. An alarming report from the Virginia Department of Education says students are falling behind. The report warned of statewide declines in student performance across reading, literacy, math, and kindergarten readiness. As administrators gear up for another school year, some parents want to know what they plan to do to narrow the achievement gap. I reached out to teachers and got answers about student performance.
Student performance is dropping across Virginia, according to a Virginia Department of Education report that says the achievement gap is widening at public schools.
Just from talking to some of the kids and doing some little activities with them, I'm going, there's some type of delay.
Gwen Bailey is a military family life counselor who works with children. She says she's noticed students are not performing as well as before.
I'm looking at some of the writing skills, even just in writing their names for some of the lower grades that probably should know how to make letters.
The report, released in May, warned of dropping test scores across all age groups and said pandemic-related school closures only made things worse.
My senior who graduated, he actually dropped completely from his being a 4.0 to a 3.5 just from that year out alone.
The report points to specific areas of concern. It says only 33% of 8th and 38% of 4th graders are proficient in reading. And alarmingly, the report says 42% of 2nd graders scored below the reading benchmark.
The report pigeonholed or cherry-picked certain data statistics to make public schools look as bleak as possible.
Reagan Davis of the Chesapeake Education Association said students are not performing as badly as this report makes it out to be. He said the report doesn't adequately highlight trends in improvement.
It's making a picture that public schools are bad and then we should have charter schools and private schools.
Davis said although the pandemic may have played a role in dropping student scores, what's needed is continued investments in public education.
When we invest in our students' futures, when we invest in the educators, and not just teachers, the custodians, the teacher assistants, microfilm technicians, data clerks, everybody, when we invest resources into our employees, students have greater opportunities.
Students in a few school divisions are already back in the swing of things, starting the new year just a week ago. Last Monday marked the first day of school for parts of the peninsula and northeastern North Carolina. Casey Baylor has a look at the early start to a new school year.
A sea of backpacks and smiling faces returned to many schools in Hampton Roads. School staff in places like Newport News and Hampton greeted students with signs as they entered the building Monday morning.
My first day.
Many students like Peyton Rose are excited about the new year. Others are ready to show off their new school gear.
And I got the unicorn backpack.
And parents on the peninsula have mixed emotions about dropping their students off.
I am hoping for a safe and productive year for two of my kids.
Yes, we are so excited. I'm sad, but it's okay. It's bittersweet.
Kate Ford says her daughter couldn't wait for her second year of preschool.
She's been itching to get back to school. All summer she was talking about missing her friends.
Ford says the excitement had her up early.
We didn't sleep last night because she was too excited. She woke up at 3:30 and she told me that her glasses were on and she was ready to start her day.
And this school year is much different than years prior. School leaders in Newport News and in Hampton decided to start the school year a week earlier than normal. According to leaders with the Newport News Public Schools Division, the early Head Start allows teachers to address student learning gaps and end the school year early. I'm Casey Baylor for 13 News Now.
And we want to see those first day school pictures from your kids. Text your photos to the number on your screen there, 757-628-6200. Your photo may end up on air or online. Remember, text the number, don't call.
School divisions in Hampton Roads are battling dozens of vacancies ahead of the new school year. Teacher shortages are a long-standing problem nationwide, but school administrators are thinking outside the box to fill gaps in the classroom. Allison Basil found out where vacancies stand in our area and who is answering the call to teach.
For Betty Spencer, nothing compares to getting back into the classroom.
Keeps me learning new things and just keeps me alert.
Spencer retired in 2016, but decided to get back into the game and teach at Virginia Beach City Public Schools.
It was a natural fit for me to look at the school system, to look for where they needed help.
School leaders across the 757 are encouraging former teachers to come out of retirement. In many cities, officials report having dozens to hundreds of teaching vacancies still to fill.
We're hearing from school divisions that there are just no people in the pipeline.
Virginia Education Association President James Fetterman says he's seeing more retired teachers go back to school now that COVID-19 cases are lower.
Retired educators have always been our go-to in the midst of a crisis.
Retirees can find part-time and full-time teaching positions across the region, including in Virginia Beach City Public Schools.
So even for this year, we're still looking for language teachers, French and Spanish. And of course, our part-time positions still include PALS, which is a literacy program, our full-time positions in elementary education, pre-K to 6, special education, math especially. So anybody who would like to come back in those areas, we are always welcome them.
Recruitment and retention coordinator Ann Glenn Zeljasnak says there are plenty of spots for bus drivers, clerks, and substitutes like Rudy Melvin, who came out of retirement too.
You know, being retired, sometimes you get a little bored. And I enjoy being around kids.
Melvin and Spencer say they don't plan to re-retire anytime soon.
I haven't set a time limit per se. It's just as long as I can do it, I guess.
I've been encouraging some of my friends that are retired. I'm like, hey, this is the coolest thing that you can do.
In Virginia Beach, Allison Basil, 13 News Now.
Under a 2001 Virginia law, teachers who come out of retirement to teach in an area of critical shortage can receive a new salary and continue collecting their pension. We have a list of the current critical shortage subjects and all of our back to school stories on 13newsnow.com. Just look under the Back to School 2022 tab.
Slowing down drivers around schools, what Chesapeake Police are doing to encourage safe speeds.
And mapping out schools will break down the new Virginia law that is expected to make emergency response faster. 13 News Now is your back to school station. Stay tuned. In Chesapeake, police are warning drivers to think twice before stepping on the gas.
That's right. Hundreds of children are getting ready to hop off the bus and into the classroom. And of course, safety is a top priority. Ann Sparacco explains how officers are cracking down on fast drivers this school year.
Slowing down in school zones seems like a simple task.
Very simple.
But as drivers become consumed by the hustle and bustle of the daily grind, Officer Mark Lawrence with Chesapeake Police says many can forget school is back in session.
The interstate is right here, so people are concentrating on trying to get to work, get off work.
In April, Chesapeake police officers implemented a new strategy to capture people speeding through school zones. Several cameras are now set up to catch anyone in a rush just in time for students to return to the classroom.
This system is here because we've heard the complaints and there's been enough to say this is a problem, and this system can help us fix that problem while achieving our current goal of highway traffic safety and our limitation on manpower.
Chesapeake police officers say they recorded about 1,400 drivers speeding through school zones in the last 2 weeks of May. That resulted in approximately $140,000 worth of fines. And this all happened right before summer school even started.
During summer school, we did have a large amount of violations that came through. I think that towards the end of summer school, we did see a change to where we weren't getting as many.
Officer Lawrence says drivers can face a $100 fine if caught speeding, but he says those cameras serve as a simple reminder slowing down could save a life.
In order to make our roadways safe, we have to work together. The best rule of thumb is if the flashing lights are on, go 25.
In Chesapeake, I'm Ann Sparacco for 13 News Now.
And Officer Lawrence says Chesapeake Public Schools has a total of 12 speed cameras installed throughout the city. He says his team is analyzing data from this summer to determine future plans for the initiative. And keeping kids safe in the new school year, ahead what Virginia schools are doing to boost security on campus.
And COVID-19 protocol in the classroom. A look at how schools are making health a priority. On top of mind for many this year is school safety. Just under a year ago, a 15-year-old student opened fire inside Heritage High School in Newport News. 2 students were shot. At least 2 others were injured during the rush to evacuate the building. The shooter is serving a 10-year sentence for malicious wounding along with gun charges. Heritage High was just one of 193 school shootings last school year. That's according to data collected by the organization Everytown for Gun Safety. Now, you may not be shocked to find out the number of school shootings quadrupled over the last year. It's an issue leaving many parents worried about sending their kids back to the classroom.
That's right. Sarah Hammond tells us what school divisions in Hampton Roads are doing to keep everyone safe.
77 minutes of shooting, terror, uncertainty, and missteps. That's what happened at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas, just over 2 months ago.
What I want, no one can give me. I want my daughter back.
A gunman walked through an unlocked door and into a classroom, shooting 19 students and 2 teachers to death.
He walked in unobstructed initially.
A scathing 77-page report by a Texas House Special Committee found catastrophic lapses in training, preparation, and leadership by the law enforcement response.
Every time there is a
a major incident like that in that country, it ratchets up our anxiety. The natural thing that we want to do is we want to look to the things that are close to us.
With the Uvalde shooting in mind, as Virginia Beach students prepare to go back to class, Superintendent Aaron Spence says security is his top priority.
We take it very seriously.
According to Chief Operation Officer Jack Freeman, Virginia Beach is increasing security at their elementary schools. There will be a school resource officer in all secondary schools, and they're adding an emergency manager.
And that emergency manager will be able to help with our preparations and our planning as well as our response.
New this year, Freeman says the division is adding an armed security officer at all secondary schools. And on the technology side, Freeman says school leaders are constantly upgrading camera systems throughout the division.
As it relates to Uvalde, one of the big things we want to make sure is that we have our external doors in a locked position.
In Portsmouth, division leaders say they've upgraded lighting and camera systems, and they're working with the sheriff's office and police department to staff school resource officers. Over in Hampton, a spokesperson for the division says officials are working to install a new weapons detection system. Students can expect school resource officers, canines, and handheld metal detectors used for random searches. From the statewide perspective, in the new budget, Virginia is spending $27 million to get more school resource officers in the hallways.
What happened in Texas was both heartbreaking, but you saw a lot of systematic breakdowns.
Attorney General Jason Miyares says Virginia State Police constantly monitor threats via social media and phone calls.
Whether it's a sick joke or they want to commit acts of violence, zero tolerance.
Superintendent Spence, who has children of his own in the Virginia Beach School Division, wants to reassure students, staff, and parents they never stop working to protect everyone in their buildings.
Always evaluating, always assessing, and always training.
Sarah Hammond, 13 News Now.
And more on security measures out of Hampton. A group of canines you can see here could also be the next layer of security in schools. Lucy, Caesar, and several other dogs are in training at the Hampton Fire Academy. They're getting ready to one day be inside the classroom. It's part of a program called American Canine Interdiction. Organizers say the dogs are trained to smell firearms, even if hidden in a locker or on a person walking down a hallway in a crowd. They are not taught to apprehend anyone, so they're going to work well with students. These dogs are specifically trained to smell firearms with the hope of preventing gun violence in schools.
My son would come home and say, "Hey, Mom, they had the dogs in school today. It made me feel better about being there." I don't think arming teachers is the answer, but this may be a good solution.
And leaders with the K-9 group say they work hand in hand with school resource officers. And as staffing shortages impact police departments everywhere, the extra help eases the burden on those local officers.
We've learned from past school shootings that many could have been prevented if someone spoke up. A new video campaign encourages students to report any information that could put a halt to potential violence. Ashley Smith tells us more about the OK to Speak Out campaign.
Holly Anderson's 5-year-old son Wade starts kindergarten this year. She says it's not easy to approach the subject of violence with him.
At his age, it's hard to know what the balance is to talk about without scaring the life out of him, to go to school.
Fortunately, Holly says her son is a talker.
He will tell you everything that's going on. Teachers are going to know everything that happens.
But other children, especially older ones, may not be as vocal. So the Virginia Center for School and Campus Safety is now urging students and young adults to speak up when something may be wrong.
The adults are often not in the know with what's going on.
James Christian is with VCSCS. The center created a PSA campaign called OK to Speak Out.
It's important to sort of change the culture in schools so that students understand this is appropriate, this is safe, this is good for my school climate.
The campaign launched in April on popular social media platforms like Instagram and TikTok.
Social media is sort of the modern version of the playground. It's where a lot of students are communicating.
Now, OK to Speak Out runs TV and radio PSAs, reminding children their input could save lives, including their own.
This isn't a gotcha. It's not a, we're trying to, the school and law enforcement is trying to find reasons to suspend someone or, seek out criminal charges. It really is about getting that information and then putting the interventions in place.
Holly thinks the campaign is a good idea, but says she plans to take extra steps to keep Wade safe.
Things that me and my husband and my family were looking into are these ballistic shields. They're inserts that go into the backpacks. Buying something like that is a little bit of peace of mind that I can try to protect him even more when he's at school.
That was Ashley Smith reporting. Christian says the center is constantly working to improve the state's threat assessment plan within schools. It also provides more training for teachers, staff, and law enforcement.
School safety, a topic being debated at the state and federal level too. A new law in Virginia requires all schools to provide a detailed digital floor mapping system to first responders. Ann Spracco tells us how this new plan could save a lot of time during an emergency.
In emergencies, everything comes down to seconds.
And time is essential to be on the scene to assess the situation quickly.
When it comes to students at school, those seconds are even more vital. School divisions across Hampton Roads already have security measures in place with locked entrances, surveillance cameras, and ID requirements.
An emergency is not going to happen when you want it to happen. It's going to happen when it's probably the most inconvenient for it to happen, but knowing that people know exactly what to do through practice is so important.
But when it comes to police and firefighters accessing the buildings, there's a new law in Virginia which took effect in July, making sure they know where they're going. It requires school division leaders to provide an updated and detailed digital floor plan to school resource officers, police departments, and other first responders. Dr. Jared Cotton with Chesapeake City Public Schools says every year they update their safety drills, but this new technology helps them with outside resources.
Now law enforcement has direct access to those maps digitally. They can look at on their phones very quickly, or they can use a laptop or whatever the case may be. They don't have to shuffle through maps and papers and documents. They can quickly pull it up, assess the situation, and develop a plan of action.
Wendell Jenkins with Virginia Beach City Public Schools says his school division already had a similar system in place. Now school leaders will share it in a digital format with local departments authorized to access this information.
This just gives you eyes and a feel for what you're going to expect when you get to the building, not trying to figure it out once you get there.
Not only is it a way for everyone to know where they are going, but Jenkins says it also helps when communicating during that 911 call.
They can identify where that person is, and then they can see all the devices that are located, because a camera is anywhere close. They're able to actually just hover over that, pull the camera, and they can see what's going on in an area. That's just an example. I think that's very important to have all that information. And the thing is that everybody's on the same page looking at the exact same information.
Because if everyone is on the same page, that saved time could save a life. I'm Ann Spracco for 13 News Now.
And administrators with Chesapeake Public Schools say they also have a new quick tip messaging system for students to report suspicious behavior anonymously.
COVID-19 guidance, what health officials are changing to prevent a COVID outbreak in Virginia schools.
And it's not just COVID, some other illnesses to protect your children from, what doctors recommend when it comes to shots for kids. And another year behind the screen, what Chesapeake Public Schools is offering to help students who choose to learn from home. COVID-19 will no doubt affect another school year when public schools open over the next week. The State Department of Health issuing its guidance on how to handle positive cases and close contacts this year. School nurses, they say they're tired, but they tell Janet Roach they are prepared.
These are test kits that are ready to be picked up by schools. Each box holds 6.
Signs of the continuing battle with COVID are stacked outside Newport News School's nursing supervisor, Nancy Carlson's office.
Sometimes it's stacked up, up to here.
COVID turned school nursing upside down.
Holy moly, let me tell you. It was crazy.
So preparation for another year is a must, and Carlson is ready with new guidelines from the state health department.
But at this time, the VDH says that for a person who tests positive, any close contacts do not have to quarantine at this time, that if they become symptomatic themselves, then they do need to stay home.
Students and staff who test positive for COVID must stay home for 5 consecutive days.
They can come back on day 6, wherever day 6 or after.
They should wear a mask through day 10, but if not,
they can provide proof of a negative COVID test on or after day 6.
And then a second negative test 48 hours later. As for masks in general, they are optional, except in one case, as explained in this COVID briefing before Virginia Beach School Board members.
When a student is sent to the clinic and is ill with a respiratory or COVID-like symptoms, in that case, they must wear a mask.
And also sent home. In Newport News, parents will still get notifications like these when anyone in the school turns up positive. Some divisions will only alert parents to clusters.
And there will no longer be a COVID dashboard this year.
And all schools will be armed with tests for staff and students who need one.
And these are the ones that the grant with the Virginia Department of Health provides to public and private schools.
The relief nurses will feel this year is they will no longer contact trace every single case, only for clusters. And medications and vaccines are making a difference.
It is very clear that these vaccines are working phenomenally to help keep people out of the hospital and keep people from dying.
And Carlson recommends students to get their COVID vaccine and all required shots. The Virginia Department of Health has a list of shot requirements for students of all ages.
Now, some of those vaccines include shots to prevent viruses like chickenpox, polio, and rubella. As Ann Sprocco reports, pediatricians are also recommending other vaccines not on the required list.
Yeah, but he's a happy little baby.
Kyra Finney says motherhood is a constant game of playing catch up.
I'm a mom, I'm young, it's weird, but I'm kind of getting used to it.
As her son Cairo grows bigger every day and spends more time in daycare, she's now trying to keep up with his vaccinations.
Yes, he probably does need the vaccines, but I make sure I read up on it and I know what he's taking and what the vaccine is for, because some of them may be unnecessary. He doesn't necessarily have to take them, but if I feel like it's in his best health, then yeah, he's getting every vaccine he needs.
That's what Dr. Douglas Mitchell with Norfolk Pediatrics is also trying to help parents do. He says with a long list of school and daycare immunization requirements, he wants parents to consider getting their children vaccinated sooner rather than later.
Everybody's going to be busy. The last minute rush is going to be a challenge to parents. It's going to be a challenge to pediatricians. And so schedule as soon as possible and have patience. Everybody's doing the best that they can.
Dr. Mitchell says while the coronavirus and flu vaccines are not on the required list, he highly recommends parents consider getting their children the necessary shots.
The more people we have immunized, the less problem we're going to have with the virus moving forward.
He says shielding young children from the virus in schools can have a domino effect on their family and friends.
We've got to protect the younger children too, so they don't bring it home and give it to the grandparents that are more likely to have bad outcomes.
At almost a year old, Cairo is already eligible for the COVID-19 shot. Finney says for her small family, the rush to get the vaccines can wait.
As far as COVID and the flu, I'll wait till he gets older, 6 or 7 maybe. I'm going to leave him alone for a little while and not push too much medicine on him.
In Virginia Beach, I'm Ann Sprocco for 13 News Now.
The Virginia Department of Health has a full list of required vaccinations for schools and daycare centers. To learn which vaccine your child needs at each age, you can find that information on 13newsnow.com. Well, while many students are prepared to head back into the classroom, others plan to learn behind a computer.
Of course, Casey Baylor shows why some Chesapeake families still need virtual learning.
Just like the pandemic, virtual learning has looked different over the past 2 years. At the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, leaders with Chesapeake Public Schools offered hybrid learning.
The number of students requesting virtual really cut back quite a bit in the second year of the pandemic.
But the school division still saw a need for remote learning, starting a program for high school students last year called the Chesapeake Virtual Academy. For the new school year, division leaders are expanding the program.
We are offering virtual learning for all students, K through 12, provided by our Chesapeake teachers. So our Chesapeake teachers are going to be the ones delivering the instruction.
It will replace the Virtual Virginia program for elementary and middle school students offered through the state. Division leaders always wanted to start a virtual academy for non-traditional students. School Superintendent Dr. Jared Cotton says the pandemic accelerated the process.
We have students who have to go on homebound because of any kind of medical issue, whether it's short-term or long-term. and we want our students to stay connected to their teachers.
Dr. Cotton says at last check, about 180 elementary students, more than 170 middle school students, and nearly 650 high school students are set to learn from home this school year.
We're serving all kinds of students. We have special education students, we have English language learners, we have students who are working on career and technical programs. Some of our students with disabilities have been the most successful.
He says the virtual academy is a year-long commitment. In Chesapeake, I'm Casey Baylor for 13 News Now.
Families had to apply for the Chesapeake Virtual Academy. High school students also have the option of participating part-time and taking some classes in person.
A bill backed by Virginia lawmakers looks to continue free or reduced cost meals for public education students. It's called the Keep Kids Fed Act. Congressman Bobby Scott says child hunger dropped significantly since the bill passed, and he doesn't want those figures to change. Bethany Reese breaks down who's eligible and who needs to apply.
Virginia students with families at or below 185% of the federal poverty level will be eligible for free meals. For a family of 4, that means your total income is $49,000 a year or less. The expansion will allow nearly 65,000 more students to get school meals for free. And the applications, they're free too. But not everyone has to submit a formal application. Students in households who get benefits like Medicaid or supplemental nutrition assistance are automatically eligible for the free meals.
Having access to school meals for families who need it is really critical.
Virginia food banks say they're trying to expand partnerships with schools across the Commonwealth to bridge the gap when students don't have access to meals at school.
That they have access to staple grocery items, and we have backpack programs, after school meal programs. There are lots of ways that we can provide kind of wraparound supports for those families as well.
Many Virginia schools and divisions are also using the Community Eligibility Provision Program to serve free meals to students. Find more info about meal waivers at 13newsnow.com under Back to School 2022 stories. All right, back to school shopping looking to cause a bigger dent than previous years. What local families are doing to work around rising prices.
And inflation is impacting how much money teachers are bringing home. Why a raise may not be enough this year. For many families, a paycheck doesn't stretch as far as it once did. Prices remain steep this September after inflation reached a record high in June.
Yeah, and with back to school season here, added expenses like new shoes and supplies, putting a strain on wallets. Angelique Arentalk sat down with a local family to find out how they worked around rising costs this year.
Adriana Roman of Chesapeake always stays mindful about budgeting.
And I just try to get the best deals that I can get for them, especially having 2 boys.
For back to school shopping, the single mom says she considers online deals and in-store discounts.
It's whoever has a sale that's going on for that week. And I kind of just do it gradually throughout the summer.
She also took advantage of Virginia's tax-free holiday weekend in early August. Like many parents, Roman had to work around inflation rates reaching record levels this summer.
I just had to tighten up on my budget a little harder.
Everybody is seeing inflation take a bite out of their paychecks and income.
Dr. Bob McNabb is an economics professor and chair of the economics department at Old Dominion University. He expects parents paying more for back-to-school shopping this year than last year and pre-pandemic.
They got to pay more for groceries. They got to pay more for school lunch. They have to pay more for clothes. And schools are paying more for everything also.
McNabb points out the average yearly inflation rate for clothing in the U.S. hovered at 0 from 2017 to 2019. However, it jumped up to 5.7% for the first half of 2022.
So when you go out for your school supplies, they're going to cost more. The clothing is going to cost more. Why? Not only are the materials more expensive, it just takes more money to get them from the manufacturer to the distributor to the retailer, to you.
When it comes to food prices, McNabb tells me the average rate of inflation sat a little more than 4% in the second half of 2021. In the first half of this year, it rose at nearly 9%.
It's a very hard balancing act now that people expect inflation to continue. And the only way really to break it is by increasing the cost of money. That is raising interest rates.
And it's not entirely clear when Americans will feel much of the pressures lift. Roman hopes everyone can keep stretching their money as Hampton Roads ushers in a new school year.
Find the plan that works best for you and just stick to it.
In Chesapeake, Angela Garantalk, 13 News Now.
And some other things you can do. Consumer experts recommend comparing prices store to store and shopping the store brand. And while the cost of goods is still rising, research from Deloitte shows that parents will shell out more money this year for things like sports to boost their kids' mental health. That makes sense. And families with students aren't the only ones feeling the strain. Even after annual raises, teachers are making significantly less money when factoring in inflation into their salaries. Dan Kennedy crunched the numbers for us and found out most teachers may not even notice the extra cash.
This week, teachers returning to the classroom are learning a tough lesson in economics. Their sluggish salaries will struggle to keep up with soaring inflation. Nationally, teachers on average make $2,150 less than they did a decade ago when you adjust for inflation. In Hampton Roads, we compared starting teacher salaries between this year and last and found only Chesapeake Public Schools offers a salary bump that offsets inflation. Starting teachers in Chesapeake get 10% more than this time last year. Teachers in Virginia Beach still make the most. The starting pay is nearly $52,000, up 5.5% from last year, but not enough to account for inflation of 8.5%. In Suffolk and Newport News, starting salaries are 6% more this year. Portsmouth and Norfolk salaries are up 5% this year for new teachers. And in Hampton, the pay bump is just 4%. All 7 cities pay new teachers somewhere between $49,000 and $52,000. Aside from salaries, school divisions are trying to recruit teachers with other incentives. Nearly every city is offering a sign-on bonus. Virginia Beach is cutting employee health care premiums, and current teachers in Hampton got a raise of up to 20% in some cases. Dan Kennedy, 13 News Now.
Local divisions are worried about filling hundreds of bus driver positions. We're told because of a shortage, drivers will double up on their routes when needed. Most Hampton Roads school divisions have budgeted to pay drivers between $2 to $6 more per hour this year. Meantime, school leaders are asking parents for patience.
We're always coming. We may be late getting them there, but we will have a bus that goes by every stop every day.
School administrators are reminding parents they can drop off their kids at school if they're worried about bus delays. Virginia Beach, Norfolk, and Hampton offer bus drivers the highest pay at $21 an hour. Newport News is offering sign-on bonuses to recruit drivers. We've posted a link on where to apply on our website. Teachers have been spending the last few weeks preparing their classrooms for a new group of students. After the break, an inside look at the process.
Plus, how local heroes stepped in to help teachers get ready for the new year. Your Back to School station. We'll be right back. Students and parents have been spending the last few weeks gearing up for the new school year. Teachers have been too.
Eugene Daniel looks into what preparation looks like for educators this year.
Soon, the hallways of Denby High School in Newport News will be busier. Classes start August 29th, a week earlier than usual, which means Donna Phelps Thomas is already preparing for that first bell ring.
I'm just looking forward really to being with my students.
Mrs. PT, as students call her, is a science teacher and one of many educators across the school division back for training. She's also decorating her classroom and picking up school supplies, including 130 composition notebooks for her students.
That's in addition to pencils and paper, other supplies that we need in the classroom.
But this year, she's noticed school supplies feel a bit heavier on the wallet than years past, and she's not alone. According to the National Retail Federation, spending on back-to-school supplies is up 40% as prices climb due to inflation. Families aren't the only ones shopping for supplies. Teachers often come out of their pockets, too. Pamela Donaldson Johnson teaches 6th graders in Virginia Beach and is entering her 20th year as an educator.
They mostly buy their supplies for the kids that really can't afford them. So it becomes, an out-of-pocket expense for the teachers in the elementary school. And I know even for myself.
There are efforts to help with the load, like this teacher supply drive in Hampton. School divisions can also help purchase some materials. Donaldson Johnson and Phelps Thomas both say they are excited most to see all of the new faces and to teach in an environment without pandemic restrictions.
Hopefully, though, in light of that we're able to move forward and do things differently than we have done them in the past.
Eugene Daniel, 13 News Now.
A lot of work goes into getting the classrooms together, and local service members wanted to help cut that time in half. It's part of a program called Servicing Our Schools. 30 Naval Station Norfolk service members headed to several Norfolk public schools to lend a helping hand.
Being a parent, I know the type of struggles that teachers go through to get ready for the school year. I thought it would be great to come out and assist in any way that I could.
Service members spent 4 hours at the schools helping carry supplies and stock classrooms for the new school year. All right, well, some may say the best part of getting back to school is getting ready to show off your new clothes.
It's true. Ahead, a look back at how students were stunting for their first day of school back in the 80s. It's one of the best parts of the new school year, for me at least, setting out the first day of school outfit the night before. The anticipation of a new year, new me attitude, walking through the halls, I couldn't wait for it. In the 80s, that meant big and bright. High-top sneakers, hot pink shades, polo shirts, flipped up brims. Look at these guys. Baggy jean jackets, of course.
You had to have the baggy clothes. And without online shopping, who can remember that? The Janus Shopping Center in Norfolk and Lynn Haven Mall in Virginia Beach had a back-to-school surge of shoppers. That's what you're seeing on your screen now. But I have to ask Phil, okay, back to school. What was the outfit you remember? What was your look?
I don't know if I have one particular look, but I always remember getting the kicks, the Air Maxes in high school.
Oh, of course.
Matching it with a polo or a nice t-shirt.
Hey, there you go. I'm sure you looked good.
I think so.
For me, I had to have all new everything. Like it had to be fresh.
Fresh. Oh,
and the white kicks. White Adidas all the way.
Nice. White kicks. All right, that's it for us today. Take some time on this final night of summer to put out your first day fit. Get excited for the new school year.
All right, and stick around. 13 News Now at 5 starts right now.